So throughout this series, we're occasionally going to drop in on the stories and the experiences of some of those from the very first Christmas story. We're going to try and see Christmas, to smell it, to taste it, to experience it through their eyes. And as we open today's window, we're going to think about the experience of the mother of Jesus, Mary. Mary is a total nobody when an angelic messenger turns up and tells her that she will be the mother of the Messiah. The Jewish people had been waiting for this figure, the Messiah, for hundreds of years. There was a hope that through this figure the world would be set right. In Mary's day, there was a particular hope that the Messiah would deal with the brutal Roman occupying forces who seemed to the mind of many people in the day symptomatic of the world and its wrongs. And now Mary is told, Mary, you are to be the mother of the Messiah. You are to bear the one who will set the world right. Mary's response, well, she is flabbergasted. For one thing, she's not married. In fact, she's probably just a teenager. For another thing, she's a northerner. She lives in Nazareth. Could the life-changing news of God coming to set the world right really start with the Judean equivalent of a sixth former in Grimsby? How can it be, asks Mary, that such momentous news should involve such an ordinary person in such an ordinary place? And we kind of understand, don't we? It's so easy for us to get caught up in the wonderful Christmas magic, the music, the lights, the food, the TV, the coziness. And aren't we especially longing for a little bit of escapism this year? But it's also very easy for us to attempt to squeeze the Christmas story into this kind of mold as well. Our vague familiarity with the Christmas story can kind of turn it into a nostalgic fairy tale, the kind of thing that happens once upon a time or in a galaxy far, far away. We find it almost impossible to conceive that if the one true God really were there, he would want anything to do with us, a human race on a distant planet in a corner of the galaxy. Ordinary students studying in an ordinary Yorkshire town. How can people like us even make a blip on the one true God's radar? And yet, as the cells combine and a baby starts forming in Mary's womb, and perhaps as she starts feeling this baby kick, it starts to come home to her. The one true God has time for people from the world's Nazareths. In fact, in due course, the Bible tells us that Mary goes on to compose a song in which she tries to make sense of her story. Somehow it comes to Mary that God's choice of her is emblematic of how God chooses to relate to humans. That the least, the last, and the lost can have a place in God's family and in God's purposes. And so as we begin to reflect on an upside-down Christmas, here is the first suggestion that it will all come to center on an upside-down God. A God who comes not only for the celebrity and the well-known, but also for those who feel humdrum, who feel like statistics. A God who is committed to the weak and the humble, and who will stoop low to honour the forgotten. See, Christmas tells us about the mighty Lord of glory, who will stoop and step into the humble world of weak humanity. It starts in a teenager's womb in a backwater northern village. But it will cause him to plunge even further still in pursuit of us, ultimately to death on a Roman cross. Is that not an upside-down Christmas? And yet, does it not also reveal a God who might not only move heaven and earth to meet Mary in her mundane rhythm of life, but who might not also move heaven and earth to know life, precious life, bought and won for you? Happy Christmas.